Hello everyone, my name is Kiely Tate and this is my Think Aloud presentation for T&L 530. The text I have chosen is Stone Fox by John Reynolds Gardner and illustrated by Emily Sewell. Today I will be sharing my observations on my reading behaviors as I went through this text. After opening all of the links available, I chose this text because it had some illustrations and looked a little bit less wordy than the others, so it caught my eye and piqued my interest the most. I'm assuming that this page is at the beginning of the book based on its placement, although it does not include a title, so I'm thinking that it must just be located in the cover of the book before the text actually begins. For me, this illustration starts with searching because you must look at the entire photo and try to figure out what you are seeing and what the book might be about, which leads into predictions. One might think that this book is about a farm or the country or a connection that a little boy might have with his dog. I'm assuming or predicting that the dog is a pet because it looks like he has a leash and that he is presenting the leash to the little boy. It also helps me make connections to the illustration because in my own life we had a pet dog. The little boy is looking down at the dog with a smile and the dog seems to be wagging his tail, which makes me think they have a very positive, healthy bond. I can also make connections to that with my own pets that I've had throughout the years. This next page is the title page, and I found that I am kind of missing the copyright page. So I'm wanting to know when this book was published and a little bit more information about the book that I don't have access to without that copyright page there. Moving forward, though, this title page causes me to make some inferences about the book. It's very plain and to the point, which makes me think that the text inside might be a little bit more dry. I have no prior knowledge of this book or the author, so without any of that background knowledge, the title Stone Fox causes me to make predictions that the book will be about a fox in the wilderness based on the picture that was provided at the beginning along with this title page. After reading the page about the grandfather not wanting to get out of bed, I find myself searching for information. Why is he sick? Why is he laying there? Why does he look so sad? Also, I can make connections with this page because it describes the family living on a farm and having happy memories with the grandfather, and I can make connections with spending time on my family farm as well as having happy and silly memories with my family and grandparents. On page 4, there are two main reading behaviors that I noted. The first one being fluent phrased reading. The reader has to read the punctuation and also read at a good rate, making their voice reflect the meaning of the text. For example, when the grandfather is telling Willie to hurry up or he will be eating with the chickens, it can be read in kind of a silly voice. The second reading behavior is remembering information. Although it was just presented on the previous page, the grandfather had been playing tricks and the child thinks that he just might be playing tricks again before he decides that he doesn't want to play anymore. So the reader would have to remember the information from the first page about him pretending to be a scarecrow. On this page, I find myself synthesizing information. After I read the page, I felt like the information about the dog was a little bit puzzling. I didn't understand why we got the description of the dog and what the significance may be in this story, or why the child would call the dog to bring him when he went to go find the doctor. I also found myself adjusting my pace when I was reading. At the beginning, I was reading very quickly and hurriedly when the child was speaking to the dog, and then as the child was out of breath, I imagined that he would speak more slowly and pause between each word. Finally, on this page, I found I was thinking very critically based on the information that was given in the story. So far, it seems as the story was set in the past, so finding out the doctor was a female was a little bit surprising to me because in my mind, in the time that the story was taking place, there would be more male doctors, and so as I read doctor, I just assumed it was a male, and then reading the description, finding out that it was a female was surprising. Page 6 allows me to use the illustration for additional information. I can see Willie's face looking rushed as well as the dog running, so it allows me to make some predictions based on that information. Obviously, something is wrong with the grandfather because the doctor stopped reading, and initially she dismissed his actions as a trick, but was alarmed when she stopped reading. So my prediction would be that she also feels something is very wrong, and she's also very concerned about the grandfather. Page 7 for me had a lot of significant reading behaviors, and I found many different examples to choose from. The first would be the new vocabulary words such as harmonica, handsome, and palomino. As a reader, the students would have to take time to solve these words, then sound them out, and make sure that they made sense within the text. A lot of them may still be unfamiliar to the reader, so as a teacher, I would take this time to go back and show them pictures or examples of the vocabulary words so that they could make more sense of them as they continue to read. I also found that I had to monitor and check myself as I was reading. There is a portion of the story where it states, "The dog enjoyed a good run," and then is followed by, "The grandfather was just the same." I read that as the grandfather enjoyed a good run and so had to continue reading and then go back and reread for that to make sense as far as the grandfather was still in the same condition regarding his illness. And finally, the doctor pulled out her little black bag. I found myself connecting to that because in our preschool classrooms, we oftentimes pull out little black doctor's bags with simple items that children might see at the doctor's, such as Band-Aids, gauze, or stethoscopes. We can take those opportunities to expand on the current knowledge and introduce new vocabulary items that might be found in a doctor's bag and scaffold children's learning and ask questions about what the children might think that the doctor would use on the grandfather while she's examining him. I believe this illustration helps us to search for information, and it also helps to validate the reader in what they're imagining in their head from the reading is actually true as far as what the author is trying to get across. The illustration is also a great way for the reader to connect with the information that's being presented by the book, and they could maybe relate to a time when they were sick, when their pet was able to comfort them or check in with them, like the dog is doing for the grandfather in the picture. It put me at ease a little bit to see the doctor in the picture is smiling, because if there was a lot of concern for the grandfather, I don't feel like that grin would be there, so it brings a little more lightness to the illustration. The dog looks very worried. The grandpa looks very sad. And not being able to see the boy's face might make us question how he is feeling, or if there's a lightness that's going to continue on the next page because of the doctor's smile. On this page, I feel the author is striving to build a little bit of suspense and curiosity from the reader. The child is asking about the long silver object, and rather than just coming out and saying what it is, you're kind of just left wondering. If you're a reader like me, you also might take this opportunity to pause at the end of this page and help children make predictions about what might be coming next or what might be ailing the grandfather. I think the author does a really nice job of ending this page with a question and leaving you in a little bit of limbo, not knowing what is going to happen next, so you're able to take that pause and make predictions and figure out what might happen next. The first thing that stands out to me on this page is the critical thinking aspect that comes from the fact that the grandfather is perfectly healthy, but doesn't want to live anymore. I think there's a lot to be said about thinking beyond that, and if it's an agreeable way for the grandfather to be reacting the way that he is to his grandson. The second thing that I notice on this page is fluency and pace. I think the reader needs to be aware of how quickly they are reading and give inflection to the different people that are speaking. There are some ellipses that the author wants you to take pause for emphasis, and that causes the pace to slow down significantly and the reader to really focus on how things are intended to be said. On this last page, again, I think it's a wonderful way for us to start making predictions and to think about different ways that Willie might be able to find out what is wrong with his grandfather and if he is going to be successful in his journey to make his grandfather happy and want to live again. That's it. So thank you for listening to my Think Aloud, and I hope you all enjoyed my presentation.